We seem to be fascinated by the thought of death. While most of us would agree that it is best avoided, we also find it fascinating. However, nothing exemplifies our preoccupation with death more than how we treat the deceased. In this video, we'll look at 6 of the most fascinating ways that we treat the deceased's remains. Stick around for number 1. It's not for the faint-hearted. But first, let us start with one that we will all be familiar with. Burial is the act of interring a person or an object in the earth, and it is perhaps the most basic and popular way to dispose of a body. Burial is widely acknowledged to be one of the first detectable forms of religious practice, and numerous hominid bones have been discovered, interred with burial goods or evident traces of ceremony. Even today, most burials are presided over by a religious authority, and many societies treat them with great solemnity. In some societies, how one is buried can make all the difference. Christian burials, for example, frequently require that the body be laid flat, arms and legs extended and oriented east-west, and the head placed at the western end of the grave. This will allow people to see Christ on Judgment Day. In Islam, the head and face are oriented toward Mecca. Warriors in certain ancient societies were interred upright, and an upside-down position is often associated with suicide or punishment. It's worth noting that humans aren't the only ones who bury their deceased. Chimpanzees and elephants have been observed covering deceased family members with leaves and branches. The next on our list is number 5. Entombment is the act of depositing human remains in a structurally enclosed enclosure, such as a burial chamber. This varies from burial in that the body is not placed directly into the earth, but rather in a specifically prepared sealed room. Tombs come in a variety of shapes and sizes, including mausoleums, constructed particularly for this purpose, complex and sometimes decorative family crypts, and simple caves with a sealed entrance. A mausoleum is normally an above-ground construction, but a tomb can potentially be a subterranean chamber. Tombs may be created for a single usage or to house the bones of multiple generations. Individual remains in tombs are often sealed in coffins or sarcophagi. However, they may also be put in grave niches. Tombs can belong to individuals, families, religious organizations, or even entire towns. Catacombs, such as the famous Parisian catacombs, are a type of tomb, as well as a mass grave, and in other cases, like the Capuchin catacombs of Palmero, they serve as horrific tourist attractions. Dismemberment is the removal of a creature's limbs by cutting, tearing, tugging, wrenching, or other means. It is usually committed after death for a specific reason, but it has occasionally caused death. Until the late 1800s, hanging, drawing, and quartering were customary punishments for high treason. This involved the offender being dragged through the streets by a horse while tied to a hurdle, then being hanged by the neck until nearly dead, but still alive, having the vital organs removed from the abdomen and burned in front of them. Males were typically castrated at this time, and their genitals were also burned. And finally being decapitated and the body cut into 4 pieces. The head and fragments were usually cooked and displayed as a warning to others. In the Netherlands and Belgium, people guilty of regicide had their wrists and legs chained to horses and their abdomens slashed open. In current times, the most common reasons for dismemberment are to conceal the deceased's identity, to make the corpse easier to carry, or to fit into narrow areas. As a result, it is usually done after the person has died. Hair samples, face modeling, and fingerprints can all be used to determine identity. There are compelling reasons why many killers take the extra step. Dismemberment of Catholic saints' bodies has also been undertaken in the past, since their earthly remains are revered as holy relics. Cremation is the process of converting dead corpses to fundamental chemical constituents, such as gases and bone pieces. This is most commonly done in a crematorium, while certain cultures, such as India, use open-air cremation. Generally, temperatures of at least 1500 degrees Fahrenheit are required to assure total disintegration. After the process is completed, the remaining dry bone pieces are swept out of the retort, the chamber in which the body is immolated, and put through a cremulator. This machine grinds the bones to a fine sand-like powder. In some cultures or areas, pulverization may be done manually. These ashes are subsequently given to the family to keep, scatter, or bury in a customary grave. In Japanese and Thai funeral traditions, the bones are not ground, unless the deceased requests it. Instead, family members sift through the remains and remove the bones using special chopsticks designed for the task. This method involves a lot of ceremonial elements. The bones of the feet are picked first, followed by the bones of the skull, which are placed last in the urn. This ensures that the corpse is not upside down in the urn. The urn is then placed in a place of honor or a little shrine in the home. In the late 20th century, it became fashionable to be buried in space, which meant having a little portion of the cremated remains deposited in a capsule, about the size of a tube of lipstick, and blasted into orbit via rocket. Since 2004, there have been around 150 space burials. This option is not usually chosen because it can be extremely expensive, and just one business currently offers this service. In most cases, the remains are launched into Earth orbit, while some have been launched to other destinations such as the Moon, Pluto, and outer space. Famous people who have been buried in space include James Doohan, Scotty of Star Trek fame, Gene Roddenberry, creator of the aforementioned Star Trek, Timothy Leary, American writer, psychologist, and drug campaigner, Clyde Tombaugh, American astronomer and discoverer of Pluto, Dr. Eugene Shoemaker, astronomer and co-discoverer of the comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, and Leroy Gordon Gordo Cooper, Jr., American astronaut and one of the original Mercury 7 pilots. If you like short, weird stories, please consider subscribing. It really helps. Cannibalism, also known as anthropophagy, has a long history and is still practiced today. It refers specifically to the act of humans feeding one another. Homicidal cannibalism occurs when persons are intentionally slain for food. Necro-cannibalism is the term used when the practice is limited to persons who have died. Cannibalistic social behavior can be classified into two types: endocannibalism, consuming humans from the same society, and exocannibalism. Cannibalism can be performed for a variety of reasons. Among prehistoric peoples, it was widely thought that ingesting an individual's flesh would bestow powers on the cannibal. Cannibalism may also be done just because the cannibal enjoys the taste, as an insult to the deceased or to honor them. Cannibalism has long been a recurring motif in myth and legend, dating back to ancient Greece when Cronus, an ancient god, was claimed to have devoured his children. The Brothers Grimm told the story of Hansel and Gretel, in which two young children are abandoned in the woods to die and discover a cottage made of cake and gingerbread. The building turns out to be the home of a cannibalistic hag who adores the soft flesh of young children and intends to cook and devour them, but is defeated by the children's cunning. So that's your lot for now. See you next time.